Hello and welcome. This week I'm showing a variety of different ideas, or what I call formulas, for using some of those different designer series papers that might be just maybe a little bit more difficult to use. Things that have definite scenes on them that we buy because they're really pretty, but then you get them home and it's like, well, I'm not really sure what to do with this because it has a really pretty picture or some kind of scene, and you don't want to cover the whole thing up, and maybe you don't want to just cut a rectangle and stick it flat on a card base and be done. You want to add a few of your own little touches to it. So in one of my videos, I shared using a big bold border to kind of cut up or separate that scene just a little bit and add a little bit of interest. Of course, always adding some die cuts. And then my second idea was to just add a little frame. Keep a lot of that scene, that interesting paper in there, but just add a little bit of a border, some kind of a frame, and then some die cuts. So today I'm actually going to be sharing a couple different ideas of making some sort of a fun fold. This is the beautiful Gallery Designer Series paper from Stampin' Up! This is still available on, as my time of recording this is still available on the Stampin' Up! Website. There's a whole bunch of different sheets. You get 6x6 papers. There's beautiful kind of tone on tone or smaller patterns on the back, but the fronts of them, the A side we'd call them, have these really big, beautiful kind of gallery painting type of images, and they're gorgeous. But again, sometimes you get these and you get a little bit stumped, excuse me, on what to do with them. So my third idea is to do some kind of a fun fold. And this is one of my very favorite fun fold patterns to use. It's so super simple. It's really kind of my go-to if I want to just add kind of that quick little element of something extra to a card. I did share this already on my YouTube channel, so I'm not recreating this one today. I have a different, what I call a fun fold that I'm sharing today. We're going to create that together. I've also been sharing not just the beautiful gallery paper, but also the Splendid Autumn. That was another set of paper and supplies that I had bought from Stampin' Up! Over a year ago and actually didn't use because I got it home, and again I was kind of stumped on what to use. It's more of a fall theme. It's really these deep, rich fall colors and really pretty scenes. So I've been sharing those all week as well, and this was my fun fold that I made with that. So same exact layout. You can see it preserves that really pretty scene. I used actually the back of a different sheet of paper, but all I did was just add a die cut circle and a die cut leaf on the front there, and that was this paper here when I started out. Again, really pretty, but it's like, okay, now what do I do with this? And just by kind of sizing it down, cutting it just in some strips, you get to maintain that really pretty scene, and it adds a little bit of interest to your card. So today's fun fold is using a shaped die and cutting, kind of a shaped card. Some people may not really consider this a fun fold, but it's definitely different than just your regular A2 card. So let me show you what we're going to use to make this today. At the end, I will show you what I came up with using the Splendid Autumn paper in that same design. Okay, so for this card, I used this sheet of 6x6 paper. Really pretty. It's this vase with these big white flowers. And I thought, I want to preserve a lot of that. So I used the Everyday Arches dies, not the biggest one. I used the second size down to cut a panel of this. And basically I held the die up here and kind of moved it around and decided, okay, what part, if the rest of this is all gone, what part of that paper do I want to still see on the front of the card? I kind of decided on, this portion over here. And just keep in mind, when you cut that like that, you are preserving a lot of that paper from the back, this nice big strip over here. So you still get to use that really pretty paper back there. Or if you, have something that you would want to use this for, you're still preserving quite a bit of it. But for this card, we're just going to focus on using this here. And then I decided I really wanted to layer it on a nice dark panel, maybe give it a little bit of interest. So I used the lovely Stripes embossing folder, and embossed a piece of two-tone cardstock in that Secret C. So that's the one where it's darker, lighter on one side, darker on the other. And when you run it through the embossing folder, some of that white core kind of shows through. I always really kind of like that because it gives it just a little extra interest, kind of that little bit of a worn touch. You know, it's a little bit worn. And then just to give this some stability, because it was that thinner two-tone cardstock, I wanted to layer it onto just a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panel. I decided to use the pecan pie because that's one of the colors in this collection. So I knew that that would match with that vase really nice if someone were to turn it over and look at the back. So, and then lastly, to do the actual card mechanism, that's what I'm going to show you here. I'm using some Very Vanilla. I cut basically an A2 size card. It's 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. So top fold card, A2 size card. So I'm going to step, before I go do any die cutting, I'll show you how to do this kind of what I consider a fun fold or a shaped card. So I am using the largest die in the Everyday Arches, and I'm going to put it right at the very top of my top fold card. But when I line it up, and you can see that very top edge, so this is has that kind of stitching detail. Those little dots are like the stitching detail. I'm going to try to leave that on my card. I want to include that, but right above that is that little edge that you can see. That's that little cutting edge. That's what I don't want to cut through. I don't want that to overlap my cardstock at all. So I'm going to position this so that that cutting edge is right above the fold. Now I like to use some low-tack tape to hold my cardstock or my dies in place. Okay, I'm going to actually get both of these in place before I step away and use my die cutting machine. Let's actually get that lined up again here. Okay, the cutting edge is right above the fold. I'm going to carefully flip this over and tack it down. And then I always just double check to make sure that didn't shift. And it still looks lined up. I'm also going to get this one tacked down. And let's see, this is just going to be the front panel that gets adhered to the front of this card. So I don't, I do want the entire die onto paper. I don't want it hanging off. I'm going to go right about there. So I have those two ready. And then I'm also going to put this into the Lovely Stripes embossing folder. And I will go run these all through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's take this out. You can see there's that fun detail. And I will tell you, if you use this embossing folder with, especially with the thinner paper, I don't know for sure with the cardstock, but I know with this paper, because of all the embossing that it does kind of shorten this a little bit. I found on one project anyway that it shortened it by about 1/8 of an inch. So I cut this just a little bit longer today. So we'll see how that fits onto our cardstock when we go to adhere that. Let's get this one off of here. Okay. Oh, got it all tangled up. There we go. So there's that really pretty arch-shaped panel. The arch typically is up like this, but flipped it around just for something different. And it will work really nice on this little fun fold flap card. And let's get these off. Okay, we can throw that or keep it for scrap. And here's our little shaped card. So this will get adhered right on top of there. This will all be adhered together. Now, I will tell you, when you do the double layer of your cardstock and run it through with this Everyday Arches, these little tiny stitch details almost act like it sews the two layers of your paper together. So I typically will grab my little tweezer and just kind of very carefully find you know, kind of just start working at the edge, you know, this kind of the seam between the two. I don't want to tear it. I don't want to like really wreck my paper, but really, I mean, it almost makes it just seem like you have one sheet of paper. So you have to just kind of work at it a little bit. There we go. If I can kind of get in between, and then listen to that. It's just like it sews it right together. So there's our card all pulled apart, and let's just go ahead and start assembling this. It's just a matter of using our tape runner or whatever kind of adhesive you like and putting our layers together. So this is a really quick, easy card to make. I'm going to adhere my decorative panel right on top of the shaped card. Oh, try to get it centered. And then I'm going to adhere this embossed panel. Actually, let's see how that lined up. See if my measurement worked. Pretty well. I guess it's just a little bit too long now, but I can always trim that later. I'm going to just add some adhesive. Oh, and that's one of the problems with this embossing folder. It embosses right through. So you're seeing this real time. I'm not going to go back and redo this. You have to be very careful with this. I love this embossing folder, so I'm going to keep using it, but it does make the two-tone cardstock pretty weak, and it kind of pulls it apart like that, and that can add kind of some fun detail too. So I'm totally okay with that. Just got to kind of roll with it, you know. So we'll just kind of reassemble it, get it adhered down like nothing happened. It looks fine. And then I will trim that little bit of excess off of there. And then this panel, you can kind of adhere it wherever you'd like. Adding just a bit extra since this is our movable part. But I really want to just kind of put it right up at the top edge. And I'm just trying to make sure it's centered side to side. There we go. And that's the main card. So really quick and easy to put together. Now, let me get some of this stuff out of the way here. You'll notice I just really did a very quick little embellishment here at the bottom. I used the banner sayings stamp set and the matching punch. This is a really cool thing that they just came out with. All of these little tiny sayings work with these banners. You can punch them all out at once. I love this. It's a really, just a nice little set to have. So I pre-punched a little flag banner, and I have our little saying, "I can't thank you enough." I have that on an acrylic block. So I'm just going to grab my little VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad, ink up our little tiny saying, stamp it onto that banner. There we go. And then the last thing is our leaf, a little bit of leaf detail. And I used this new Nature's Symphony die set. This leaf die cut here has been really nice to have. And then I typically take it and cut pieces of it apart when I want to do a little bit smaller embellishment area. So, and it doesn't have to be the same as what I already did. I think I'm gonna today cut it right there, stick that on there, and that maybe right there. I think that'll be good. It's fun to kind of change things up just a little. I'm going to use some glue. And I've said before, I like to have movement on my cards. So when I'm gluing some foliage of some sort on, I like to leave, I don't put glue all the way out to the tips of the leaves. I like them to be able to kind of move a little bit. And let me just grab a couple little mini dimensionals. We'll put those behind our sentiment. And I'm going to try to kind of tuck that right there under that leaf. There we go. So very quick and easy, but it's just another fun way to use some of those, you know, some of those papers that we might consider just a little bit more difficult to use. So kind of just a fun, something fun and different, okay? So there's that fun fold, and I already showed you these. That's another way to use our papers. Let me zoom back out just a little, give us a little more room here. And then the last one I'm going to share is this card design, this fun fold card design with the Splendid Autumn paper. This was the paper I chose. Really kind of pretty and different, really big flowers, like kind of wildflowers. And when you cut it down, kind of just a little bit of a focal piece, it just seems a little bit more, to me, it's a little more usable when you just cut it down a little bit, but still preserved enough of it to see what it is. Added my little leaves and my little banner. I'm so grateful. So very fun. So that's kind of my formula for today for some of those papers that are maybe a little bit harder to use. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope you got some ideas to maybe kind of take forward and use in your craft room. I would love to see what you're working on. If you ever share it on social media, please tag me at Leah Faye Handmade. Thank you so much for joining me today, and tune in again tomorrow. I'm still sharing more ideas with using these kind of scenic papers. I'll link the other 2 videos that I already did, but I have at least a couple more coming out this week. So tune in again, check things out to see what else I'm uploading. Again, thanks so much for being here, and have a great rest of your day.